adjust that camera. That's better. And then I can do the other thing. Although it's at a slightly canted angle now, but whatever. I can get up the thing that might let me pan it a bit. But the problem is with this camera is basically because of the wire tension on it, you can never get it to sit completely straight. It always wants to sit at a slight left or right angle. So I can do that. Let's just do it there. Then you've still got a bit of the Ing Sock t-shirt in it. Yeah. Hello. Hope everybody's all right. See if we get some people on. I'll do pop-out chat and then I'll put it on a white background. So, yeah, obviously I'm on the stream. I won't necessarily be on a full hour today. I'll see how I do. All right, Duma? Just because I've had quite a bad stomach today. So, sort of, you know, stomach pain sort of thing. I don't know if it's to do with my ulcerative colitis or just, you know, bad luck. Right, Janky XE? But, you know, to the point where I've been putting one of those things in the microwave every hour or so, you know, like one of those sort of, what do they call them? It's not oat, is it? It's not oat or rice, but you know what? Wheat bags, one of the wheat bags. All right, Bill. I think you came on near the end, didn't you, Mr. Blitz? But again, when we get quite a few people on streams, but I remember the people that come on nearly every stream. But yeah. So anyway, like I said, annoyingly, all right, even Rajiv, annoyingly, like I said, I have got a bit of an upset stomach. So if I do have to go and end the stream early, I will just have to go because I was sort of thinking, do I bother doing one or not? And I thought I'll start one, and then if I just don't feel up to doing it partway through the stream, I'll stop. But like I said, not sure if that's my. All right, that's all right, Rajiv. Like I said, I don't think it's anything too bad because if it is my colitis, it's only acting up a little bit and not too badly. Like I said, I was using one of those sort of wheat bag things that you put in the microwave earlier on, and that worked quite well. It was just a case of, you know, felt absolutely fine when I got up this morning. Sort of as the day went on, my stomach got a bit more painful, a bit more crampy sort of thing. You know, earlier in the day, it probably peaked at its worst, but it still doesn't feel great, you know. So it's one of those things where tonight I'm probably not going to bother playing anything with any of my mates sort of on, you know, on the thing, so because I wouldn't be able to, you know, sit in a game for an hour and then, you know, I might have to keep running off. Favorite gas mask out of all the ones I've got for actual use, my Avon C50. And that is, like I said before, set up in my bag that's ready to go with actual stuff in it, you know, like the combat body armor stuff. So it's one I keep there. Out of the others, like I said, the FM12 and CT12 I like a lot. Yeah, recently with drinks and that, I've been trying to drink stuff that isn't fizzy, both with I've got some turmeric pills somewhere. But yeah, like with this, like I said, it's too early to tell at the moment if I've just got an upset stomach from something I've eaten that's disagreed with me, or if it's my ulcerative colitis starting to flare up. Yeah, I haven't had a silly amount of caffeine today. I had a coffee when I got up, and I think that's been it. But like I said, sometimes with me, I won't know for the first day or two if it's the ulcerative colitis starting to flare up, you know, and then if it gets worse or stays the same for a few days in a row, it's normally the colitis having a bit of a flare. If it moves away pretty quickly, it's generally if I've eaten something that's just upset my stomach or just picked up, like, you know, a stomach bug kind of thing. But yeah, it was a bit annoying earlier because yeah, and again, sorry to hear about, like Rajiv was saying, sorry to hear about your tinnitus, Duma. So like I said, I don't know about neck pain. Frankly, I've never had bad neck pain, but I've had very bad back pain before. I had to have physiotherapy for it. And right, I don't own one Janky XE, so I can't say if it's definitely going to be my favorite if I ever get my hands on it. But I really, really like the CDV. Is it the 718? The one that's also like the US military Radiac, but the one that is like a big rectangle unit, and then it's got a big rectangle probe for it, and it goes up to something like 10,000 Rontgen, might be even higher than that. It goes out up to with the yellow CDV 718. It's got the digital display, and I know some variants of it beep, others or like click, others don't have a sounder on it. Yeah, you're lucky in the US if you can get those on eBay for $100. Outside of the US, people really like the CDVs. Like I said, I have got a CDV 700. But yeah, the 715 is actually an ionization chamber, isn't it? Not a Geiger counter. So the only annoying thing with the 715 is even if yours works perfectly, you'll luckily not really be able to see the needle move on it. But yeah, but otherwise, yeah, out of the ones I've got, the Radio Code 101 and this one, the Mizou KC761A with the little back bit you can open. Those are both really good, like modern digital detectors. And then again, like out the classic ones, CDV 700s I really like, even if they're a bit fragile. Soviet DP5s and IMD5s are also pretty good like that. One of my favorite Cold War ones is the updated British MD3, just because it's one of those really strong, clunky old Cold War like box ionization chambers. But yeah, so like I said, we've had more UK stuff going on that gets crazier and crazier by the day. So I want to read out a quote that the Home Office put where they're appealing this asylum hotel being closed, illegal immigrant luxury facility. They claim that the rights of asylum seekers trump those of the people of Epping. So, good to know what the government really thinks of us, that basically, morning, Scott, basically that the government's own attitude. Are you sure it's weed, Mr. Blitz, not just like a weird old capacitor smell or something? And I don't know about the 110. Like I said, I got the 101 and the 102 via sponsorship, but is the 110 just a hell of a lot more sensitive and everything? But is it because I knew they kept bringing out new ones? So Radio Code 110. Let's see. So have a look on their website. So it's got a slightly different looking case as well, hasn't it? With like a ridged edge of it. Oh, now is that the Radio Code app that looks really, really nice now? I'll open mine up and see, even I haven't got my Radio Code on the desk to turn on. Or is that only the new one uses that very specific app? So if I go to Radio Code, hang on a second. I assume it's just a new one. It's like saying my one still has the old sort of looking. Don't know why you can see it there because I've got the wrong page open to see the webcam, but mine's still got that old looking sort of way it used to look, all the bits with my one. But yeah. Okay, so that's just the iOS one has a different looking one to the Android one. Definitely up until about 2007, 8, or 9, Doomer. I don't know if they went any later than that because I think one of my S10s is from about 2008, 2009, I think. But that would be pretty much the end of it because they didn't make them past the point of the British government no longer having a contract to buy them. Oh, that's cool. So 3 times bigger crystal. Does that mean 3 times the sensitivity or whatever? But yeah, that does sound quite good. But yeah, like I said, so unfortunately at the moment I have got, like I said, still quite a crampy stomach ache sort of thing going on. So if my face looks slightly like that, it's because like I said, my stomach hurts a bit. And like I said, I might have to call this a short stream if I do end up needing to just go sit on the toilet or warm up my wheat bag again, or like put a hot water, pour a load of boiling water into a hot water bottle or whatever. Generally, with scintillation counters, don't they work like that though, Janky XC? That the more sensitive they are, the like lower they max out, because essentially they're more accurate at lower radiation ranges. But it's again why like the big old ionization chambers, that had like back in the old Cold War days, the ones that went up to the hundreds of Rontgen ranges, like the CDV 715 we were on about, and all those sort of meters, the Soviet DP3. The reason they went so high is because they were such unsensitive devices that, you really needed quite high radiation to trigger them. So yeah, I think that's the thing with those, is that the least sensitive ones are the ones that basically will go the highest, but the most sensitive ones are obviously the ones you want if you're looking for that needle in a haystack, kind of trying to really track down where a bit of radiation is coming from. But yeah, so yeah, our own government then has admitted, as they are taking a case to court against the people of Epping who were protesting that asylum hotel. They have, the government has admitted that basically, the lawyers said, and I'm going to read the quote: relevant public interests in play are not equal and are fundamentally different in nature. So basically, two legs, four legs good, two legs bad kind of thing, isn't it? But hopefully not Doomer, but I imagine because it got so waterlogged, you just couldn't breathe through the filter because it was just essentially like having a really thick wet towel in front of your face. But yeah, you don't wash filters for obvious reasons. But yeah, so the government's had to admit now then that they really do hate the people here and are never going to actually try and get rid of the illegal immigrant problem if they're doing court cases to try and win back the rights to put asylum seekers into hotels. Let me open the chat thing back up. Yeah, and like I said, I did the video earlier on about that girl with the axe and the knife. Again, that's an ongoing thing, and we don't know all the details. But I've seen some guy apparently claiming he was the man in the video and he was the victim. Again, if you're a victim, why the fuck are you going around filming little kids? That's pretty noncy behaviour. And some people have actually denied who were supposedly there that was the bloke in the thing. This might just be some random bloke who was trying to get like free money from the newspapers by claiming, oh, I was the bloke and I was a victim. But yeah, we don't know all the details of that. And obviously, like with like the whole Southport thing, people initially thought that was an illegal immigrant, and then people got put in prison and all that, like Lucy Connolly for that, retweeting about that. And then it turned out that while he wasn't an illegal immigrant, he was the son of immigrants, and that the government had covered up loads of stuff about him having all the Al Qaeda manuals, hadn't they, and all that sort of shit. So yeah, I don't really, like I said, the problem is now because the government has been so untrustworthy so many times with putting out information correctly. Nobody really believes them anymore. So it's like the boy that cried wolf thing. Even if they did put out true information now, a lot of us wouldn't believe them, which is sort of a funny thing, but it's not funny. It's just the stupid state this country's in. But Yeah. I don't know if I'd believe that they'd completely lie. Maybe I'm being naive and just giving them too much credit, but I'm certainly in the case that, they could certainly, tell a story that's so lopsided that, but we'll have to just wait and see. And again, like we said, recently the government's been buying all these things for mass body storage. Wonder what that's about. So yeah, like I said, I certainly don't trust them. Yeah, and just on another news site, Home Office lawyers have argued the rights of asylum seekers are more important than those of Epping Council, as the Court of Appeals considers the Bell Hotel injunction. Yeah, I mean, if the government is arguing that through its lawyers, they really are lying when they say, "Oh, we're definitely going to try and stop, a lot of illegal immigration." Because if they're saying they're going to try and stop illegal immigration, but then they're also saying illegal immigrants are basically more important than you and your concerns for your local area and everything else, then clearly they have no incentive to stop it, do they? So yeah, like I said, the British news at the moment is try and read it without having an aneurysm or going into depression and everything else. Like I said, not you know, I don't, and I certainly don't trust a word the government says now because they've just lied on so many things, and like I said, Labour have only been in just over a year, and they've already had so many scandals similar to similar to what the stuff the Tories did. But that's the whole thing, isn't it? If you they say, "Oh, we're so much holier than thou, and we'll be honest and we'll be true when we get in," and then, "Oh wait, we're taking loads of money again from dodgy donors and all this," and again, like I said, I don't. Yeah, the only problem with the DP66 or the DP75 is I wish the DP75 ticked louder. I know it makes that little tiny chirp, but it's really, really quiet. So it essentially doesn't tick. And the DP66, well, I do like it a lot, is very fragile. Compared to the DP5, like the Soviet DP5, although the DP66 is essentially the same meter. The main issue, like I said, with the DP66 is it's just much easier to knock and damage the the ampere on it, like the needle back screen bit, and all those sort of things. And the wiring is pretty weak in it, as in where the Soviet ones used stronger wiring, the Polish one's pretty easy to accidentally rip the wiring inside the main cable because they're like essentially very thin wires that as you fold and unfold the probe cable a load of times, you're probably gonna have them rip inside the contact sort of thing. Explorer, is that the I see you've got a Stalker clear sky, I think it is, little picture there. Is that the old-fashioned terrorist watch, the Bin Laden watch? Yeah, it is. I had one of those years ago. It was an absolutely fine watch, but like I said, at the moment I have a smartwatch. When the battery eventually dies on this one, because it's getting to the stage now where it needs to be charged daily, and it loses 20% of its charge, in 20 odd hours or whatever. I'll probably just go to a Chinese smartwatch. But I like good old fashioned mechanical watches. But yeah, the Casio F91 is basically one of those classic sort of early digital watches, isn't it? That could do a load of different things. But like I said, I've had one before. It was a perfectly good watch. I know other people that still have those sort of model of watches, and I like the fact they still make it, decades after it was, designed. But yeah, so that's that. And again, a lot of the stuff the government's arguing over again is all this ECHR bollocks of, oh, because of stuff, how it's written in the ECHR, that means that we have to put, you know, illegal immigrants over the rights of everybody else. So, yeah, like I said, obviously the UK definitely needs to leave the ECHR, because if it's one of those things where we're a member of it and we're not allowed to break the rules of it, but every dodgy actor can keep quoting it as a thing that, you know, to hold up our things legally, it's one of those obviously awful bits of legislation. Because again, there's lots of bits of legislation where it seems good actors are always, you know, held to account by, but if you're a bad actor, you can just walk around all these legislation laws and there's nothing that can be done to stop you. So again, the ECHR does seem like something we should not be in Britain, because again, if it was something, like I said, designed in the late 40s, early 50s to prevent another thing like the Holocaust, but now it's being basically used by criminals to, you know, I mean, like keep themselves from being deported or, you know, getting a load of freebies, then it is definitely not fit for purpose. What, palpitations like heart palpitations, Doomer? I don't think so. That's pretty cool, Kevin. My granddad gave me a World War II watch, but because it's a radium one, I keep it only with my radioactive stuff now. I wouldn't ever risk wearing a radium painted watch, especially because obviously, like the watch housing wasn't even tight to the watch, you know, so it's one where the paint could actually flake off and get on your hand and that as you wear it. And it wouldn't be any waterproofing or anything to that one now. Yeah, I think a couple of my relatives have had heart issues in terms of like heart palpitations, but thankfully I don't think I have. I get often a very high heart rate. You know, my resting heart rate is always really high. So when I'm in places, they often think something's going wrong because my heart rate's high. And I'm like, no, if you ever measure my heart rate, even when I'm at rest, my heart rate is high. Like I naturally have a high heart rate. And I think some medications I'm on as well slightly increase my heart rate. But yeah, so see if there's any other news in my area, what the weather's going to be like. Okay, so the weather in my area is going to be wet all for the rest of today, or, you know, on and off rain for the rest of today. Apparently, thunderstorms tomorrow, raining most of Saturday, maybe all right weather by Sunday. Again, go to a doctor if you get them and it's something serious. Yeah, who left the light on? That's exactly what I was saying, that the government has officially now, haven't they, basically said, where despite all their rhetoric of, oh, we'll definitely solve this problem, they basically said, nah, these people are more important than the local people because the ECHR or whatever says so. So basically, yeah, if the government is going to that extent to use taxpayers' money to fight against the local people, and then in court is arguing that illegal immigrants are more, you know, more valuable or whatever, however they're wording it, than the local people, then that to me just proves that they are never going to fix it, you know, and any stuff they got in on pledges that they were going to fix it were lies. Don't wear the old filter, Mr. Blitz. If you found one janky XE for that, get it. I mean, obviously, if you're into that sort of thing. But like I said, I had to buy 3 before I finally got one with a source, and it wasn't very cheap either. You might even be lucky, and the meter itself might still work. Because again, depending on how they've been stored, if they've been stored in a place that isn't really damp and whatever, the meter might still work. Obviously, some of them have been stored in like damp conditions, you know, and because of the age of the electronics, are totally dead. Or or were you saying like you found it and you've already bought it? Because obviously, if you found one with a source and it's cheap, I would recommend you get it. Again, if you're into that sort of stuff, because obviously, for somebody who is not into radiation type stuff, I would not really recommend just randomly having a DP2 with its control source sitting about. Because it's not like, is it? It's one of those. It's not like a bit of Fiestaware or whatever. The DP2 control source. Again, there's a reason with mine. I keep my one sealed inside 2 glass jars. And if I just go to the thing, the tab where I can see the live stream, you might be able to see there that Polish colorimeter, whatever they're called, is actually changing color from that DP2 source, sort of hitting it in that particular bit. The other bit in there is just some glow in the dark stuff, because it's if you're in a pitch black room and the DP2 source is close enough to it, it will make glow in the dark stuff glow in there. But yeah, that is as you can see, has changed color a bit. That it's definitely not the color it was when it first went in there. That yeah, dump it that way. Again, I'm trying to just get it like that, so yeah, as close as I can, so it absorbs the most amount of radiation from that source as possible. But yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's just one of those things. But yeah. Anyway, put that back. But yeah, at least when you've got it behind 2 thick glass jars, it doesn't give off anything other than a little bit of X-rays. All right, glad you've got it and it works then. But like I said, they're not the easiest things to find, because I think officially they are all obviously meant to have the control sources taken out. But obviously, a lot of them just didn't, I guess, because of corruption in bits of Eastern Europe, where companies that were paid to remove the sources just didn't, or they went straight from old warehouses and army bases straight onto the market. Like I said, the first 2 I got had the control sources removed, and then the third one I got was one the seller specifically sold with pictures of all the seals being intact. And like I said, then I took obviously the source out so I could use it with other meters to test the readings on it. Any idea how strong your source still is? Because I think mine's about 1.6 R if I use any open air ionization counters directly, ionization detectors straight on it. Can't even remember now, Janky, but it was probably a couple of £100 for it. But yeah, it would have been, I said mine's about 1.6 R, and that's after 2 half-lives. So Duma says, I got a NATO filter with GP5 a month ago, expired in 2018. There's certainly no risk of using the filter. And if it's a NATO filter, and it only expired in 2018, that's actually probably quite a good backup filter to use with some masks that would actually work with that thing. So obviously don't use it with the GP5, because you'll break the threads if you keep screwing a NATO filter in and out of it, because it's not the right thread for screwing into the GOST sort of thread adapter. Yeah, there's some people, though, Janky XE, that have DP2s from the 60s that have ones that are still like 20R plus, which means they must have been like, 80 to 100 Rontgen or something back in the day when they first put them in, to show you how like insanely strong some of those control sources were when they put them in. So Cluda said, yeah, oh, so you thought I was being silly and dramatic, did you, when I said about cheap filter masks? Yeah, no, you will absolutely hate cheap filters by having to get them in. Like I said, they're one of those things that aren't awful in concept if, they weren't so bloody annoying to put in the first place. All right, Tessie X. Like I said, annoyingly, I've had a day today where I've had a bit of an upset stomach. So I've got one of those days where, although I don't feel bad in myself, like I'm in an all right mood and everything, it's one of those days where I can't really do much that's very fun, because I keep wanting to make sure I'm near a toilet in case I need to run to the toilet and that sort of stuff. So again, don't know yet if my colitis is playing up. Oh yeah, CFF3. I've got one of those in this room somewhere. Or maybe it's in another room now attached to a different mask. But yeah. Oh, yeah, CFF3 is on the Canadian C4 up there, actually. Wow, as in, like, yeah, unproductive in the sense that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I want to do that would be either stuff that would be, more interesting to be doing or whatever. But yeah, it's just like saying at the moment, it's one of those things where, I don't feel unwell enough that I actually feel ill, but, where you feel like, yeah, you can't concentrate on stuff, and certainly wouldn't be able to play games with any of my mates, online tonight, because it's one of those things where I wouldn't want to be in an hour-long game and have to try and concentrate and also, go an hour without a toilet break. So, anyway, I'll stay on a few more minutes and I'll head off because, like I said, I've been on 30 minutes or so this stream. But like I said, unfortunately, just because of the fact that my stomach's still a bit iffy, I don't want to try and risk going to an hour. So like I said, I'll stay on another 5 minutes, say, and then that will take it till half 5. Yeah, a CFF3 is NATO threaded, so it's absolutely fine for an S10 Doomer. It's fine for any NATO mask. I mean, there might be a few individual masks it doesn't really fit on, just because some masks can still be a bit funny about the size and shape of the filter, even when they're the right thread pitch. But yeah, as long as you're not putting it on a Gauss mask, it's fine. It's absolutely fine on an S10. I got one in, Clueless. Now you need to get the next one in and still get the little plastic bits pushed through the little holes without like ripping your fingernails out. But yeah, they're absolutely fine for S10s. Like I said, they're NATO masks. It's just sometimes filters like that won't work on things like a C50, because with things like the C50, because it has that, like, it's designed to take specially shaped filters. Well, actually, saying that, the C50 I think is all right. I think you can use pretty much any filter on the C50. I think you can't use the Avon C50's filter on lots of other masks, because of the shape of the filter means often it doesn't sit flush with other masks. I wonder if the BBC is even reporting on this thing, or if they're conveniently not covering it. Oh yeah, it's only their 4th story today. Yeah, the main thing with the BBC is the UK tells Russia to stop senseless killing. I mean, the Russians aren't going to listen to the UK anyway, so after they blew up another 19 civilians. But again, I think some more of the Russians' oil plants have been blown up in Ukraine, attacking them back. So, it's good to see Putler is very clever at picking his targets, well. Because again, it makes a lot more sense to, if you've got a limited amount of missiles and everything else, you're meant to actually use your missiles on strategic targets, not civilians. But, that was what Hitler did during the Blitz to Britain, and it didn't work out for him. Yeah, so the BBC has it as news item number 4. Epping asylum seeker hotel order could spark more protest, court heard. Rulings apparently tomorrow. So either, I was going to say, you're going to have either two things happen. You're going to have the court is going to be sensible and side with the people and say, no, we're not going to, overturn this thing of that hotel being banned from asylum seekers because nobody in the local area wants it. Or they'll do what the government wants, and then people will get angrier and angrier because it will seem to everybody that there's no way other. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm encouraging violence, because I'm really not. And, we don't want this country to be going this way. But if people feel like through all legal and protest methods and voting, they can't fix the problem, then people will feel maybe that violence is the only solution. Oh, that's good, Scott. Is there any difference between FM53 filters and normal filters? And Stalker, I'm afraid I'm off in a couple of minutes because I had a bit of an upset stomach today, so I was only doing a short stream today. But another thing on the news, Met Special Constable found guilty of child R-word. Yeah, that's going to give people more assurances that the police are all right and good people. like saying where things are getting uglier and uglier in this country. You know. So yeah, that's that. That's the wrong window. I want that window. I want this window open. All right, Tom. I haven't actually watched any of the 13 o'clock videos in a while recently. I've just not got round to it. Yeah, it's but yeah, it's like I said, we've got a lot of shit going on now with our government where I think they're fucking panicking now. Like I said, I've got a Saint. It's not very well done behind me, but I have got the St. George's flag that I did put up, just as out of fucking spite. Oh, and another thing I was saying to people, I did join the Free Speech Union today, just because that gives me a bit of legal help if I say stuff online and then the Stasi are sent after me for stuff I say online. They have been very good at, like you pay a membership and then as long as, you're charged with something speech related, they are very good at, I think most people have been predicting something would kick off in the UK, but yeah, it's whether or not stuff keeps happening. Because like I say, now what we've got is the government actively now trying to use legal means to suppress a lot of protests and things, which I don't think is going to end well, and a lot of other people don't think it's going to end well. Oh, you got an old stalker with an oil lamp and he's got an old paraffin blowtorch. If you're in the UK and you post stuff online, probably would be my advice. Again, they're not paying me to say this. Like I said, I paid my own money to join up. But because of how much it seems the government is prioritizing charging and harassing people over criticism of them and saying about stuff actually going on in the UK. Like I said, that's kind of why, because I thought sooner or later maybe I'm going to get into issue because I've just brought something up that's actually happened in the news. And yeah, so like I said, annoyingly I'm Oh yeah, like I said, yeah, with the girl, yeah, like I said, she hit the factory reset and went full fucking Braveheart on that guy. And again, like I said, they're sort of trying to cover up what's going on with that story, so we don't know all the details yet. But again, one of the whole two-tier policing things that always gets brought up is that when the police or what like if something happens and it's a white person, say, that's committed a horrible crime, normally straight away the police are out saying straight away, oh, it was a white man that did it, this thing, whatever. Whenever it's certain other groups, they hold it up and then then they're going, oh, we're not doing anything wrong. It's like, so why didn't you release the information? So yeah, the fact they're not releasing the information makes people sus. But yeah, I think that's like, again, what a lot of people are saying is I think a lot of stuff that when stuff gets bad enough, people will just go fucking tribal and fucking medieval in a way. Yeah, and like we're saying about Ireland and that though, like the other day, is that stuff is getting really fucking interesting with a lot of Europe and that. When I can't remember if this was in the Republic or in Northern Ireland, but you had the thing, didn't you, last year where people were marching side by side with Union flags and the sort of Ulster flags with the Republic flag. Like, so if you've got loyalists and Republicans, essentially, those sort of two groups, loyalists and nationalists, whatever you want to call them, marching side by side because they think each other, the Catholics and the Protestants are less of the enemy, are the enemy, like, compared to all the people that are being imported. I think the government should be fucking afraid of that. Because, yes. Anyway, like I said, as much as I do want to stay on longer, annoyingly, like I said, because I've got a bad stomach today and that, I can't really stick around a bit because I probably do need to run to the toilet again in a minute. Yeah, and like I said, the government should, I think, rightfully be fucking terrified of that, because it means at that point normal people have said enough is enough, Yeah, we definitely, like I said, we definitely need a real constitution, because the problem with what we've got at the moment is, although we've had various kinds of bills of rights and things, they're ones that aren't legally upstanding. Yeah. And at the moment, we've got the kind of whole taxation without representation thing, where we're being taxed and all of the politicians will keep doing whatever the fuck they want, regardless of what they were elected in to do. And then, you know, it's basically the shut up peasant kind of attitude. Again, Scott, I don't really know how it works. Like, in theory, the monarchy here is separate from the government. Yes, they're kept separate. Yeah, Boston Tea Party and everything. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I think that is going to be what sort of happens here, is that if they're so stupid that they keep thinking they can keep pushing people further and further, and it's not going to come back at them. This is the problem, that a smart government will be trying to make appeasements now, you know, to some degrees, to think, you know, like, oh, how can we calm situations down? But Keir Stalin, as we call him, seems to be one of these people that basically just keeps throwing petrol on a fire, because he, you know, like I said, can't seem to fucking back down, because he's so obviously ideologically focused on all of his human rightsy, lawyery kind of, you know, shit. That it's basically, well, technically what I'm doing is legal, and I'm not breaking, you know, the letter of the law, even if I'm breaking the spirit of the law. But yeah, this is the thing. A lot of people, Tom, now, have the issue of the monarchy, that they don't really see it doing anything other than just being there for kind of the sake of being there. But yeah, if the monarchy was there as a kind of thing to back up stuff, if the, you know, government broke its oaths or whatever, the two were safeguards against each other. Yeah, maybe. And I could also like the idea of a monarchy, if you had a monarchy as a sort of thing, a bit like a dictatorship, in the sense as well that a king was in power, you know, and the king knew that if he upset people too much, because he couldn't just pass the buck to somebody else a year later and run off with his money, like a lot of government officials do, you know, they'd be a bit more worried about upsetting people in case they got the French, you know, Revolution treatment. So yeah, I could kind of see that sort of system working, but what we have now just doesn't work, because again, every government we've had for the last 20 or so years will keep promising whatever, and no matter what they get elected on election promise wise, they break it. But I think Bournemouth has bigger problems, doesn't it? Who left the light on to worry about, seeing as, you know, what's been happening to kids in Bournemouth and other things. Yeah, exactly. I can completely agree with you on all that stuff. But yeah, anyway, like I said, as much as this is an interesting conversation, I'd like to carry it on. Annoyingly, like I said, I'm not in the best of health today, so I am gonna end the stream now, because I just wanted to get on for a bit and at least chat with people. But yeah, hopefully it's not my colitis flaring up and I have just eaten something a bit dodgy, or you know, just caught a stomach bug or whatever. But yeah, I need to be kind of close to a toilet today, let's say that. So yeah, anyway, have a good day, everybody. If I'm feeling a bit better tomorrow, I'll hopefully be on for a longer stream tomorrow. But like I said, I'm like everyone else. I'm yeah, cheers, Tom. I am like keeping a very close eye on all the shit that's going on, because like I said, it's getting faster and faster now, with I think the dominoes falling, if you like, of you know, something quite big is, I think, going to happen now, because I think we've passed the point where stuff could have been fixed properly, you know. Anyway, I'll see everyone. Have a good day, good evening, good weekend if I don't catch you tomorrow, whatever.